born in New York, but you ATL now. You've been around here long enough now that you got the ATL stripes.
Am I honorary?
You honorary.
Nah, she'll wear a Yankee hat on your head.
Oh, she'll put it out on her. Will she? So what's so good about the A? What do you like about the A?
You know, I was one of those kids who grew up, first of all, I read everything. You know, I guess I knew sort of subconsciously somewhere that I was interested in news. So I was that kid who would read magazines and newspapers. And honestly, I would read like Ebony and Jet. And there was always something in an Ebony or Jet magazine about Atlanta. You know, even if it was just like the queens on the campus, you know what I mean? How they remember, and they would put them in Ebony magazine. Remember, and you would see like the queen for Clark Atlanta and things like that. I mean, even if it was that kind of article, but there was always something about something going on. If it wasn't the King Center, or maybe something that Coretta Scott King was doing, or something the SCLC was doing. You know, names like we hear today, Reverend Lowry, different names. I would always read about them, and of course, when Maynard Jackson became mayor, you know, even though I was a little girl in New York, but that was a big deal. And we knew, and we talked about it in New York City, like what a big deal that was. And my family talked about it. My mother and her friends talked about it. So Atlanta was always one of those places that I heard about as a child. And at some point, I decided that if I was ever to live outside of New York City, I would want to live in a city like Atlanta, because it seemed like such a place that had so much going on, such a positive place. And of course, to me, in New York, it was like the Mecca for black people, because you had a black mayor, you had black schools, you know, you had these black campuses with black students. And it was just one of those places that I was like, Atlanta must be a really great place to live. And you would see black families, you know, and it was always like in an Ebony or a Jet or something. And so that was one thing. And it was just some place that I was always interested in.
Interesting.
So that's how, you know.
Kind
of worked my way toward here. You know, I didn't just get here though. You know, I worked at other TV stations before I got here. So I worked my way up in the business. And when I got the opportunity to work in Atlanta, honestly, I jumped to it. You know, I thought I knew WSB was a great place to be. But the combination of being in the city of Atlanta and working at WSB, I just thought that was a no-brainer. It was an opportunity that I had to work for.